Here we're going to try to calculate the government's budget balance. That's asking, do we have a surplus, do we have a deficit, or do we have a balanced budget? So if the revenues are greater than expenditures, we have a surplus. If the expenditures are greater than the revenues, we have a deficit. If they're equal, then we have a balanced budget. So let's go ahead and calculate the balanced budget balance for each of these years. So in year one, we have revenues of $2,100 and expenditures of $2,200. So the expenditures are greater than the revenues, so we have a deficit. Okay, if we have a deficit and the magnitude of the deficit, we have to figure that out. It's just the difference between the two. So 2,200 minus 100 is 100. Okay, for year two, we have revenues of 2,200 and expenditures of 2,000. So revenues are now greater than expenditures. So now we have a surplus. And we want to find the magnitude. It's just the difference. So 2,200 minus 2,000 is 200. Now for year three, revenues 2,200, expenditures 2,300. Expenditures now greater than revenues. So again, we have a deficit. And the magnitude is just the difference between the two. So 2,300 minus 2,200 is 100. In year four, we have the revenues and the expenditures are the same. So now we have the balanced budget. And in the last year here we have revenues of 2,000 and expenditures of 2,400. So expenditures are greater than revenues. We have a deficit. The magnitude is just the difference between the two. That's going to be 400. So that's how we calculate the budget balance. Now the next part of the question says, if Pennsylvania started with year one with $800 billion of debt, what's the amount of debt following year five? So we're going to start with 800 in debt. So if we have a deficit, that means the government has to borrow more money. So that's going to add to the debt. So the deficit is going to add to the debt. So after year one, we're going to have debt of 900. All of this is in billions. Now a surplus means we brought in more money than we spent, so that can pay down the debt. So we're going to subtract surpluses from the debt. So 900 minus 200 is 700. Deficits, again, we're borrowing more money, so now we have to add that to the debt. So the 100 plus the 700 is 800. Now a balanced budget says we spent exactly what we brought in, so that's not going to change the debt at all. And then the last year we have a deficit of 400. We have to add that to the existing debt. So 400 plus 800 is 1,200. So the end of year five, we're going to have debt of 1,200.